Hello, West Hartford. My name's Chris Prentice. You're watching Peace is Possible. Our goal is to promote peace, understanding, and conflict resolution by highlighting stories, discussions, and initiatives that center on fostering harmony both here in the local Weha community and on a global scale. Today, we get the privilege and the pleasure of chatting with none other than Mr. Michael Riley. Michael Riley is a U.S. Air Force veteran. He's a Bloomfield, Connecticut resident, and he's a highly trained yoga instructor and mindfulness facilitator. Michael holds a 200-hour certification from Embody Yoga and a 500-hour yoga certification from the Kripalu School of Yoga. He's got specialized training in mindful yoga therapy specifically for veterans. Additionally, he's completed certifications in yoga for special populations, mindfulness facilitation program right there at Copper Beach Institute here in West Hartford. Currently, he teaches meditation and pranayama practices over at Wabi Sabi Yoga and Wellness in Granby, Connecticut. And he shares his expertise to foster physical and mental well-being. Michael, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. It's good to meet you. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
I'm glad you could make it out today.
It's a pleasure, yes.
I kind of wanted to kick things off. I came across a quote recently, and it hit me in a certain kind of way. I just wanted to see how you feel about it. The people of the world will never live in peace until the people of the world are able to find inner peace. How does that sound to you? Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does, because the world is outside of our experience, and if we're just caught up with all the things outside of our internal experience, then there's all that confusion.
Yeah.
In my practice is being centered, being able to be in stillness, and really identifying things within me that helps me to lower the temperature, put aside emotions that are not serving me, then I grow my inner peace. Once my inner peace grows, then I see differently what's going on in the world around me. Yeah. So I don't have to create that level of peace, and I can't outside and into the world. So that idea of world peace really has to begin with oneself.
It begins within, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it changes your perspective. It changes your thoughts, dictate your actions, no?
Absolutely, all of that. So once you create that sense of stillness or peace within, what you see is actually reflected. So if there's confusion and noise happening inside, and that's all there is, that's what you're going to see outside in the community.
That's what
Absolutely.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So I just wanted to kind of get into your story a little bit, and then we could move on to what you currently do, and what led you to the place you're in now. Like I said before, you were in the Air Force for 4 years, from 1976 to 1980. Yeah. What called you to the military? Why did you?
Oh man, it was a lot. I had just gotten from Jamaica 4 years before that, just a regular, normal teenager. And the world was really moving really, really fast. Jimmy Carter, as a matter of fact, I love that man. He was the president at the time, and he created opportunities that I heard about when I graduated high school. And so I started college in Queens, New York, and immediately the energy, the vibe wasn't nice. I saw a lot of separation. People from the Caribbean was in a corner. African Americans were in another corner. A lot of whites and some Asians were in another corner, and it just didn't feel good. I didn't want that. I knew that I wanted better than that. But also at home, the first of 7 children. So the space that I occupied was getting smaller and smaller as my brothers and sisters got bigger. So, I always started thinking like, well, I worked at JFK at the time, but it was an after-school job, and I saw many veterans at the time were coming out, and they were working on the aircrafts at the airport. Okay. And, I just started making connections, because I realized that New York was still very fast for me. I came from the country in the hills in Jamaica. But I knew I wanted more. And so seeing the veterans working on airplanes, seeing the space that I was occupying getting smaller and smaller, so like, I think the military.
I see a path forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I wasn't interested in guns and wanting to go into the army or the Marines. I'll
Sure.
be straight up with that. For me, I was looking for an opportunity for higher education and skill sets that I would not have gotten if I had just stayed in New York
Sure.
City.
Sure. And the Air
That's
Force is
why.
all about engineering and physics and
Yes.
science. I love it.
Flights.
I love it. A man of
Yeah.
brains, a man of intellect. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
After your 4 years, you had to transition back into civilian life, and as we
Yeah.
know, life in the military is not the same as it is here in the homeland. What was that transition like?
It's funny. I spent the last 3 years of my military service in the Philippines, and my separation date came up while I was in the Philippines, and it just didn't feel good. I was like, I'm thousands and thousands of miles away from home. I didn't want to separate there, so I extended my stay for 6 months, and they sent me to California. And I'm glad they did, because at the end of that 6 months, they just packed up everything that I had in a big box, in a wooden box that they created based on what I had, and shipped it back to New York. Sent me back to New York.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm back in New York, and I'm thinking, well, I'm back in the same space. This isn't going to work. And all of a sudden, Queens just got smaller and smaller, and that was the first sign that I knew that there was something that wasn't right with me at that space and time, because I went back to a space that I knew and occupied before, my parents' home. The city that I knew, it just felt like it was concaving. So I talked to my cousin here in Connecticut, and he says, hey, come on up.
Okay.
He says, you got Pratt & Whitney, you have Hamilton Sunstrand. Back in the 80s, you can actually learn a trade and
Sure.
do something. I don't know what they're doing today, but so I left New York right away, and
Yeah.
I came to Connecticut. But that was to take care of myself in terms of the intellect, in terms of mechanical skills. I still wasn't addressing that fear that I saw developing when I was in New York for those like 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So about that fear that you felt that something wasn't quite right. Are there support structures in place for veterans to make the transition? Because I understand a lot of veterans come back from overseas or from service, and when they get back to the space, it's familiar but not. You know,
Yeah.
are there support structures around for them to kind of fit back into a civilian life?
No, there is.
There are now.
We're talking 45 years ago when I got out in 1980. There weren't many. They
It's
just
just
basically send
put your
you
stuff in a
home.
box and send it to your
send you
house.
home,
Yeah.
and you just kind of have to wing it. Now, all the support systems when you're in the military, if you're stationed on base, you've got the gym, you've got the cafeteria, you've got your social networking, and these were people, not phones.
Right.
So you had a real structure of support. Once you leave, and they didn't say go to the VA. You were not told to go to the VA. You weren't. They just sent you home.
Yeah.
But it is different today. It really is. There's a lot of support available through the VA, also through the towns. Here in Connecticut, every town has a veteran, like a service provider in the town hall. Someone is mandated in every town in the state to represent veterans in that town. So there definitely are programs through the state, through the town, through the federal government now that will receive veterans. But the challenge is that dark space that I had first experienced. You have to go into those spaces to get the support.
Yeah.
And many times veterans do not want to talk.
They don't want to open up about
Don't want
that.
to open up
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
I was in denial for 32 years before I walked through the door at the VA. I walked into the door of the VA in 2012. And that's a long time. But I'll say this, is that the door is always open to you as a veteran. And even the rules have changed. So if you're a veteran from any branch, no matter what your discharge paper says, you can get primary care. So it's changed a whole lot.
That's awesome to hear, actually. I didn't know that. And I want to take a minute to just, veterans out there, there are support structures in place.
Yes.
We hear it here, apparently in every town in Connecticut. They've got a person for you right there at the town hall.
Yes.
That's great to know. That's awesome information.
Even here in West Hartford.
Right here in West Hartford. We're in the building right now. They're here with us. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So eventually, you made it down to Connecticut. You know, you had some support structures there.
Yes.
You made it down, but you still hadn't addressed what the actual underlying issue was, it sounds like. How did you, I see in your bio it says a quote from you, an end of your rope visit to the VA hospital. How did you know you were at the end of your rope?
Yeah, that's well, one really never knows. It's just once you become aware that a situation is really not going to end well, then your rope can end anywhere there,
Yeah.
or you
Okay.
can just keep going. You know, and give yourself enough rope, you'll hang yourself.
Hey,
And
yeah.
that, unfortunately, that is the case for many, many people. Now, I had began, maybe at that time I had not begun practicing yoga, but when I came here, I got a good job, and I'm like, okay, I want to raise a family, still not addressing that dark
The actual
cloud.
issue, the underlying issue.
So, and many of them kind of like stayed low key until I had a family. Now the stresses are coming up, whether it's emotional or it's financial or it's situational or it's social or it's racial. Can't leave that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I experienced it both in the military and in the
back
job
at home,
situation. So, and again, I was taught how to deal with issues, problems a certain way. Those ways don't work in your society. They definitely don't work in the family. You can't be aggressive towards your family in a way that is going to hurt them.
Yeah.
And many veterans, many average people, that's the default. They go into a rage, they go into a defense, or they go into an offense and hurt. Now, I'm grateful, never been arrested for any of that thing, but I saw where, came very, very close. And as I think about it, it was done out of love.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like, go
That's
figure.
interesting.
It was done out of love.
Yeah.
And so the love, I knew it was there, but how I was behaving was not.
It wasn't a loving behavior that was coming out. Yeah.
And I began to saw that. I began to see it like wow, there's an action that's taking place inside of me based on a thought that was really not me. And so as I raise family, then problems arise.
Yeah.
At my first divorce, at my second divorce, and I'm like, well, what the hell is the problem?
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Yeah.
But to be real honest with you, I recognized that there was a problem when I started looking at myself as the common denominator to many of the things that were going on. And that's when the reality of being responsible. Because I realized I couldn't have 4, 5, 6, 7 people telling me that there's a problem and they're not talking to each other. That made sense to me that
when multiple people are saying the same thing and they're not talking to each other about it, they're just coming to you with it. Then maybe it's time to inspect what they're talking about.
Because, based on my training, I'm correct. I'm always right.
Sure.
Didn't matter what you said.
Sure. Sure, yeah.
It was default. It was easy. It was deflective.
So based on what you're saying, and then I have another quote from you here. It says, I found myself on the yoga mat as part of my self-imposed long-term treatment. It sounds like you had an intuitive self-awareness just within you to have the ability to say, okay, I might be the common denominator here. I've pushed that person away, I've hurt that person, and they're all kind of saying the same thing to me. And then you gave yourself self-imposed long-term yoga treatment, which has worked out for you.
It absolutely has.
Would you say that you had like an intrinsic bit of self-awareness there, or was it the people surrounding you letting you know what needed to happen that kind of guided your steps in that way?
No, it wasn't the people, because I was in conflict with them. I was in conflict with myself. And as long as I'm in conflict with myself, I'm going to be in conflict with the people around me. It was when I realized that things really weren't going in a positive way, and I felt like, okay, I'm at the end of this rope, and it was because the next step would not have been good for anyone. It's almost, you get to a point where, in Jamaica they say don't care.
Okay.
Means you don't care.
Gotcha.
And it's easy to get to that place where everything is just like, I don't care.
It's whatever.
And I'll do whatever, and of course lots of regrets. So finding yoga allowed me to find my body, and then I started exploring, like just through being quiet and noticing. Just notice where the vibration is. What didn't feel good, what feels good, and still keeping a little bit of space there, so it's so I can observe and I can feel. And so yes, I went from not really being aware of my body to being fully aware of my body through the practice of yoga. And that helped me, in the mental space also.
That's interesting you bring that up because, you know, people tend to think of yoga as just like a physical. We're stretching, we're moving, we might be sweating, we may, bend and turn over upside down and backwards. And that is challenging. But the challenge you're talking about is more of an internal, an emotional, a mental challenge. You say in your bio, the practice of yoga allowed you to notice, like you were just saying, notice that you needed support, and then how to find that support, how to explore the needs that you have within. What is the intersection between breathing and stretching and flexing yourself and finding that you have a problem within? Like, how do those things correlate? How does that intersect?
Yeah, so the first thing is to just turn your attention or turn the awareness inside. And then using the breath as the bridge between the mind and the body.
Okay.
Right? Because if I say, okay, let's breathe in. Sometimes you say to someone, breathe in, and they draw their shoulders up, but we don't breathe in.
You don't use your shoulders to breathe. Yeah.
So it's bringing more awareness to the body and noticing even how the breath flows up into the nostril, and feeling as you inhale, the body expands. That's body awareness. And right away, you shift from the mental body to the physical body. And the physical body holds the scars. And not all the scars are visible. A lot of them, I'm feeling this vibe right now. A lot of those scars are emotional scars.
Yeah.
And we keep them in our bodies, and then we tear up. Yeah, tears don't come out of our head. It comes out of our eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
It comes from our body. So it's washing, but you can't wash away all of it. You have to sit with it and notice it, and almost like having a relationship with it, and it quiets down. And also in that space is where a lot of our ability to heal ourselves comes from. The mental healing, because when I started going to the VA 12 years ago, they were giving me all sorts of pills.
Yeah. Okay.
And no one said if you take all 4 of them, there's going to like exactly what the interaction was.
Sure. Yeah. That's I find that's often the practice at the VA or at your local your normal your GI, but here's a pill to handle the symptom that you're feeling, but we never really get into the like what's actually causing it, what's the root.
Sleep, for example, for many years I just couldn't get a good night's sleep. I struggled with cluster headaches. For many years. I started getting them when I was stationed in Japan, and they just start like right here.
Yeah.
And they just shoot boom.
Is that a stress-induced type of situation?
I don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But I noticed after started practicing yoga, becoming more aware of my breath and the sensations in my body, I started noticing the cues of when the headache is going to begin. So I start some breathing practices or start relaxing in my body, relaxing around the temple, around the jaw.
Yeah.
Making sure my sinuses stay clean and clear.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. It's very easy to take a pill and say, oh, now my sinuses are clear. But if you have the ability, just in your moment to moment, your day to day, to go, oh, I'm feeling like this is how it usually starts. Let me just take a moment now to settle myself. Yes. Let me take a moment now to come back into my body, get some fresh air, maybe get a drink of water, maybe just rest and relax for a little bit and just notice what your body is doing. Because your body is, as they say in yoga, it's all one moving part. It's all one moving. Your mind and your body are connected. Everything is integrated. So to notice, like you said, the cues, this is how it starts. I can feel it before it starts. I can get ahead of it right now. You might not need the pill. Yes. You might not need any other practices. You might just need to sit down and breathe.
Yes. Well, the breath is really the best place to go to, the best tool to tap into, because it's always there.
Yeah.
It's always there.
You don't need
and
to
it's not judging
it,
you. You can judge it. You can control it. And so that's called, in yoga, it's called pranayama. And there are many pranayama practices to warm up the body, practices to calm the body down. When we get a surprise or we become frightened for a moment, our breath is like what immediately shows up. There's a reaction in the body, but the breath is the primary. So in the practice that I do is the breath becomes the bridge between the mind, the body awareness. And it really just starts with, we call that a drishti, or a point of focus. It's just focusing on the breath. Just feeling it, really. And I love, you use the word, I love that word, feeling, because we're not taught to feel too much.
Right, yeah.
Both in the emotional world and the physical world. We're looking outside for whatever it is that we need to feel better. Instead
outside stimuli
to
to settle you. Yeah. That's interesting.
Sitting in gratitude could be as natural as breathing, or it can be as challenging as climbing a steep hill. It depends on the day, the moment, the mindset, just where you are in that moment. So can you find ease and stillness and joy? These moments fill our heart space with joy effortlessly when we stop and notice. And when we practice sitting with awareness and ease, gratitude feels like home. And we can rest without effort.
Can I ask, you're a well-trained yogi at this point. You've got certifications from very reputable schools, from very reputable studios. Does leading the practice of yoga for others, does that do anything for you personally?
Oh my gosh, 100%. I love that because I am also taking the class. My inner being doesn't know that I have a dozen people in front of me. So when I'm teaching, I am my first student. That's where a lot of my healing and my understandings come from. So as the information comes in, I process it, I say it, I am my first student. I don't know how that works, but it absolutely works. So yes, the answer to your question is absolutely 100%. So in that, many times I really feel like I don't need to go and take a class, because every time I'm teaching, I'm literally taking my own class. And especially in meditation, because in the meditation, there is not that movement. It's just really stillness. So the space is clear. There are no ups, there's no down, there are no boundaries. What's behind the eyelids, man? There's nothing there. You gotta be comfortable. You have to feel like this is a safe space. When you close your eyes, you just need to know that you're going to be okay. And in that space, that's where living really takes place. Because there are a lot of us who are alive, but we're really not living, because we're not in touch with our bodies. We're really numb our bodies for however type, whether it's trauma or whatever it is.
Self-protection.
Or maybe just using substances where we no longer feel our bodies. So there are many, many ways that in our society, we go sideways in terms of taking care of bodies. But the more we focus on our body and on the breath, because, those are really the most important. The breath is really the most important, but where does the breath go? Into the body.
Into the body.
Yeah. So yes, I get great benefits from teaching this practice, and that's why I love it. And I'll continue.
You'll
as long as I can.
As long as you can.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So you lead programs for special populations. What's a special population?
Well, and there are many. When it comes to special population, women who are pregnant, a veteran who may have lost a limb or two, or more, young people, people who are maybe addicts or students. So when we think of special population, speaking specifically to veterans, as a yoga teacher, there are definitely some criteria of don'ts, and we don't touch.
Right.
So whatever a warrior one looks like, when a veteran is practicing, that is the perfect warrior one.
Okay.
Teach from the top of the mat, like this, the teacher stays on the mat, because again, that arousal factor, a veteran doesn't like
People behind
them.
walking around.
There's that sensation, and it does bring up fear and anxiety, and there's just that need to keep an eye on. So from the teacher's perspective, it's best to stay at the front of the class and allow the veterans to be able to see the doors and the windows. Yeah. So as a veteran and as a yoga teacher, I have to be able to play those two, because I also need to take care of myself. But in a class setting, I want to take care of the students.
Right.
So I'll have my back to the windows and the door, and I said, because I know they got me.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're also taking care of themselves.
they're also taking care of. Yeah, that's interesting. And my next question was going to be, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. The types of considerations that you do make for these special populations. You mentioned for veterans, allowing them access to see the windows and the doors to give them that level of comfort, not circling around them or coming behind them, no hands on. For maybe people who aren't veterans, maybe trauma victims, people who have had rough lives in one way or the other, are there special considerations for them that you would make?
There are considerations for everyone for every body that would like to practice yoga, because there are multiple modifications, and there are props, there are blocks and blankets and bolsters and straps. There are just too many tools that can help any person, any body to move into a posture with assistance.
Yeah.
The same thing for any one of those particular populations. So, if I'm working with or having a class with a person that's pregnant, I want to make sure that the necessary bolsters and blankets and supports are in place, because in the mindful yoga therapy practice, we talk about support, and support precedes action. I mean, it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, if I'm going to stand up, holding on to the arms of the chair is where I get the support from. So it's really important to know where your support's coming from before you take action. And it's, so in this case, if someone comes in or a group of people come in and they have a particular thing that may be unique to them or unique to a group, as a teacher, I need to be very mindful of whatever props or additional support they may need. It could be just slowing down.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It's just that level of awareness of the student or the person in front of me.
Okay. So there's a lot to consider, depending on whether you're dealing with a veteran or a woman who's 6 months along, in a pregnancy.
And I'll say this too: language.
And the language you use.
Oh my gosh, that's extremely important. Language in so many levels, because even as a man, there's language that I can just use, like with friends, or if I had those, where it would be okay. But in that space where you're creating a safe space for people to go inside and explore things that are traumatic or even joyful, but you want to make sure that that you're doing your best effort, putting your best effort into making sure that you're not startling that person if it's, let's say, a veteran, or you're not using improper language if in case it's a woman, or even someone from the transgender community. These are really, really important. If you're going to go in front of a class, you have to be really, really mindful, because you don't know whether it's one person or 12 people in front of you, you don't know what their troubles are. You don't know what their triggers are. And everybody has stuck points, and you don't want to be the one to break that, especially holding space for people.
For sure, if you're there supposed to be holding space for folks, then you want to be mindful of the different things that would inhibit that for that person. How can someone who's interested in starting a path to mental, emotional, and physical well-being, where would they get started? You found your way to the yoga mat kind of all on your own. You said, I remember you said you found that you went to a church and they were giving out free yoga classes, and you grabbed a mat and you went ahead and did it.
Absolutely.
What would you recommend to someone who's looking to get started in this way? If they recognize, I've got some internal turmoil that I need to deal with and I'm not sure how to do that, what's a good first step?
Well, that is the first step.
To recognize
It
that
is
there's
the
an
first
issue.
step. It
Yeah.
really is, because no one can really push you to do this. Just like the prescription, they offer it to you, but you take it if you want. You might find something else that's better for as far as you wanting to self-medicate or whatever, however you go. So yes, first of all, is recognizing that there's something that needs addressing within you, and feeling confident enough that, and trusting yourself enough that you're willing to make the change, because we cannot change the world. We have to change ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to change. So once you get there, now right here in our communities, if you're a veteran, please, the VA in Newington, if you're in this area, or the VA in Rocky Hill. But if you're just an average person who would like to explore other possibilities to find healing and health, Google free yoga classes. I know they've had them here at LaSalle. I've been here many times on LaSalle Road, in the park, when the weather permits, but also in the community centers. I'm right here in Windsor on Tuesdays. I offer meditation there. So start with the churches. Sometimes churches are offering. They're not advertised. Might be someone there at the church who has some experience, or may have a 200-hour and want to bring it to their community. So start looking there, and don't be afraid to say what you would like to do, and talk to people in your community. I know it's really difficult to step out, and especially yoga, and the ideas that people have about yoga, skinny stuff, all these other different things. Yoga is way more than stretching or doing postures or poses, because there are lots of postures I absolutely will not do, because it doesn't make any.
It doesn't serve you.
Doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to do that. And when you start seeing things in your community that serve you, move towards that. Break out of the mold. Walk away from those default way of thinking and doing things, and explore the challenges, and sometimes leaning into the challenges, because if a chick doesn't break through that shell, you'll always be an egg.
It'll be an egg forever. Yeah. I always think that. I always think I have this image in my mind of a seed. We always say that if you plant a seed in soil and you give it water, it'll burst forth into a beautiful flower or a mighty oak tree. And in my mind, I'm always like, does the seed really like those conditions? I feel like if I were buried in mud and poured water all over me, I would do everything I could to find the sun. I would push my way out of there to find the light.
Yeah.
And so I feel like challenge is something that humans need in order to grow.
Yeah. And I'll say this, though, that you don't want the farmer to come and keep digging up the seed to see if it's growing and all of that. And sometimes in our lives, we can have those people that just come and constantly trying. They're not really offering anything to help us on the path, as you ask. They just come because they maybe know enough, just a little enough, to be dangerous towards a person who's going through, whether it's emotional or physical or just things that has not been addressed. So plant a seed and water it, and let it grow. It will break through.
Let it grow.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we get this out there. The purpose of this show is to provide help and information. If anybody is out there struggling, veteran, trauma victim, whoever you are, 988.
Yes.
That is the suicide prevention hotline.
Yeah.
There are people here to help. There are people out there to offer support, to give you a hand when you need it. If you find yourself at the end of your rope, make that call.
Yeah.
Make that call. 2025 is off to a fast start, and we've already seen some people who hit the end of their rope, some veterans who hit the end of their rope and made some rash decisions and have affected other people. And as we know, your actions don't only impact yourself, they impact the world around you, the people around you, the lives of the people around you forever. 988. Help is out, help is around. Go to your VA, go to your town hall, go to your local church, go to your local community centers, your YMCAs. Lots of people, lots of support are around to help.
You're not alone.
Take advantage. You're not alone.
Absolutely
You're not alone.
Yeah.
And in the vein of giving people help and putting information out there, is there any sort of technique that we could describe right now, or even demonstrate for the people at home? Just like a quick, maybe like a breathing technique or anything like that that we could tell people about.
Absolutely. So yeah, so perfect. I'm loving that you're having a seated figure four.
Yeah.
So that might feel great or it doesn't feel good in
On the
one
hip
hip.
flexor here, yeah.
Absolutely. So how about you just come to the edge of the mat so that you can feel the length in your spine, and just take a breath here. All right. So we're just going to slow down, feel the body, feel the sits bones, lift through the spine, but let your shoulders just soften. Right? So it doesn't take a whole lot. I don't know if you can feel it, but I already feel a certain stillness in my body. And just being aware of my feet on the floor,
Yeah.
and sits bones,
Yeah, just
feeling the length.
just taking stock of what my body is doing instead of, oh, I'm sitting in a chair. Well, I'm not. I'm sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
But my like you said, my hip bones are in contact with that chair. My knees are bent at about a 90-degree angle.
Absolutely.
My feet are flat on the floor, and just noticing those things that we would gloss over
Absolutely.
normally.
So for another 30 seconds, if you just bring the awareness to the sits bones, grow tall in the spine, and as you grow tall in the spine, maintain that length in the spine, but then just soften the eyes. Or if it's accessible and you feel safe, you can close your eyes. And as your eyelids come down, bring your awareness to the tip of the nostril and feel the air as it spirals up into the nose. And as you do that for a breath or two, feel as the body begins to respond, the belly expands. And if you slow the breath down long enough, you'll feel the ribs expand. You may even notice the clavicle lift. So just breathe there for 3 breaths and just notice and feel. Feet on the ground, sits bones grounded, softness in the shoulders, relaxing the crown of the head, down the forehead. Eyelids are soft, softening the jaw, and again coming back to the breath. And just feel the breath, feel the body begin to breathe. And all of a sudden, the ability to smell and taste and touch just becomes really quiet, and you feel your whole body instead of one sensation or the other. So here you may want to just gently rub the tips of the fingers together. You can even come up on the tips of your toes and just bringing movement back into the body, and then you can flicker your eyes open. And just see how that feels.
I feel like my heart rate just dropped by about 10 beats per minute on that.
And I don't know, maybe that was a minute or two. So you can see if you do this more frequently throughout the day, if you're going to have a practice like we just did, a breathing practice, and that was just belly breathing in fully and exhale in fully. But you can do this 3, 4, 5, 10 times during the day, and it will make a difference.
Yeah.
Because you'll come back to the body. And a lot of the monkey mind we call in yoga, this cognitive resonance that's either going to send you into anxiety or ease you into ease and calm. The more you practice these breathing techniques that helps to calm the body and calm the mind, the healthier you become, both internal, physically and mentally.
Yeah. That was it. Really was. I did feel my whole body there. I was able to focus from the crown of my head to the sole of my feet. I was able to feel everything that was happening in my body. And for something like that, people often say, "Oh, I'm not good at that." It's called a yoga practice.
Yes.
You get good at whatever it is that you practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still a student in early stages. There's so many ways, and some people get into it, and they go to India or they go to some ashrams or whatever. Listen, you just need to be able to go inside.
You just need to, and what we just did there, you could do that in your car. Yeah. You could do that.
Not while you're driving, but
not while you're driving. Pull over, get to a parking lot, and then you can do that.
Yeah.
You could do that at your job.
Yeah,
at your
but
desk,
you know,
you know.
if you have like
It's
30
accessible.
seconds more, I'm sorry to speak over, but it's really important that if you can always add to that. So you can add the movement. Like for instance, you can inhale and raise your arms, and notice when you get to the top of the inhale.
Yeah.
And then exhale as you draw your arms down, whether you want to draw them down in front of you or you draw them out wide. Just connecting the breath to the
To the
movement.
movement.
The breath, and then you find that rhythm of the inhale and the exhale. It's musical.
Yeah.
It's medicine. It really does work. But again, you have to be able to and be ready to have this relationship with your body. You know, because the mind is going to always want to do its thing, and I'm so grateful that we have a mind that's constantly going and wanting to do. But the body is what it sort of like drags it along. So you're giving yourself permission to be still, and you literally sometimes have to say, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, Mike. I want to just be here. There were times when I struggled. I would just leave my house, not knowing where I'm going. I'll get to the end of my driveway, and I'm like, okay, am I going to go left? It doesn't matter. I just pull off.
Yeah.
You know, that's the mind, and the body would just follow.
And the body just
that's
goes
how we can. I think I didn't get into any crazy trouble, but you
Yeah.
know,
That's how things
you know what I'm
happen.
saying?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being able to sit with yourself and give yourself permission to be okay with there, it's a whole different world for you, and for anyone who wishes to practice that stillness, mindfulness meditation, and movement.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. It really was. If you guys didn't try, you can roll the video back and you try that with us. I think you'll get something out of it.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
This has
Thank
been
you.
awesome.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
informative, so well-rounded, and I love this discussion. Was beautiful. West Hartford, Mr. Michael O'Reilly,
Yeah.
yoga
Namaste.
extraordinaire.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
West Hartford, stay beautiful. You're watching Peace is Possible, and we appreciate you for that. Thank you for checking out WHCI. My name again, Chris Prentice. I love you. Stay beautiful. We'll see you at the next one.